My name is Miranda and welcome to another video. And today I'll be discussing the books I read both in January and February because I read a grand total of 4 books for both of those months. To be honest, it's kind of what I'm expecting for the next little while until my dissertation is done because my articles take priority over reading for fun. But of the 4 books I read a sequel that was just as enjoyable as the first one, the start of a fan favorite duology, the beginning of a trilogy that I am so excited to continue, and a standalone, while wasn't quite to my taste, I can see why so many people are loving it. Alright, so let's get started. So the first book I finished in January was actually the last book I was reading for the Magical Readathon Christmas at Hogwarts edition. So for anyone who saw that video, you know which one this is. That is Storm Dancer by J. Kristoff. No, I don't have the book with me. I left it in Canada. I finished it before I left for my flight. So Storm Dancer was already quite a bit different from a lot of my usual reads. It was a fantasy book, but it was a historical fantasy, which is not something I usually read. My preference for fantasy is it's set in an entirely different fantasy world. But the biggest difference was this was a steampunk novel. Now, I have been thinking about all the books I've read. I've gone through what I have read on my Goodreads list, and the closest I can find / think of that is a steampunk novel is the Cassandra Clare series, The Infernal Devices. That is the closest I can come up with. I cannot think of anything else. I do know a few different steampunk novels have been recommended to me by quite a few different people, but I have never gotten to any of them. That is until now. For those of you who've never heard of Storm Dancer, it follows a young girl by the name of Yukiko who lives in a dystopian steampunk version of feudal Japan, or shogunate Japan, because it has the shogun. I'm pretty sure feudal times was before the shogunate. I think they're considered different. If someone knows, correct me. Yukiko is the daughter of the Imperial Hunter, and her father has been tasked with finding and bringing back alive a griffin, which a lot of people deem a rather insane mission because the last of the griffins was killed many years ago. But lo and behold, they managed to find the last griffin, their airship crashes, and Yukiko is left with this griffin, and they're now dependent on each other for survival. I'm pretty sure my summary is not giving this book justice. Actually, there is a quote on the cover of this book, and I think this quote sums it up a lot better than I do. Alright, so this quote is from Patrick Rothfuss, and it's on the cover that I have. And the quote is, "What's that? You say you've got a Japanese steampunk novel with mythic creatures, civil unrest, and a strong female protagonist? I'm afraid I missed everything you said after Japanese steampunk. That's all I really needed to hear." And to be fair, is probably all I really needed to hear because Japanese steampunk already sounded really interesting. I rated Storm Dancer 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. It'd be more of a 4.5 if they ever had a 0.5 system, but I loved the beginning of this series. I love the protagonist, I loved all the supporting characters, and I actually also enjoyed the character of the Shogun. He was a spoiled little brat, I loved him. He was so much fun to hate and make fun of. So I will say for my first J. Kristoff book, as well as my first ever steampunk novel, that is an actual, I guess, steampunk novel, I say this was a great experience. I can't really pinpoint what I loved best about this book because I enjoyed every second that I was reading it. Also, I am so thankful for that glossary that was in the back because there were so many words I just did not know. And when I eventually get to it, I am very excited to read the sequel. The next book I read, and I also finished in January, was China Rich Girlfriend by Kevin Kwan. And the sequel to Crazy Rich Asians follows Nicholas Young and Rachel Chu as they get married and then go on their honeymoon and essentially find out more about Rachel's family. And then of course all the other little storylines that happen with that, but I'm considering that the major plot point, I guess. Same with the first book, there were a lot of moments that were really, really funny. There was a lot of opulence, there was a lot of name dropping and brand dropping. I will say maybe a little bit more in the second book than in the first book, but I did enjoy China Rich Girlfriend almost as much as I did the first book, so I did give it a 4 out of 5 stars. I love the characters, the descriptions of opulence are almost so outrageous that I love them even more. And I love just how, oh my gosh, soap opera-y all the drama is in these books. Don't much enjoy watching soap operas, but I guess I enjoy reading them. So this was a pretty solid sequel. I really enjoyed it, and if you really liked Crazy Rich Asians, the first book in the series, I think you will also enjoy the second book. And now all that's left is to read the third one when it's finally available from the online library, which won't be for a while yet. No, seriously, ever since the movie came out, this trilogy has been super popular, which means the waitlist for the library is almost outrageously long. Alright, so those were the 2 I finished in January, and now on to the 2 I read for February. So the first one I read, and I'm pretty sure everyone has heard of this book on a booktuber's channel. It seems like everyone has read it. I have finally gotten to it. It only took, well, I don't know how long. Pretty sure I might have heard of it when it first came out, but... And that is Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. Yes, I finally hopped onto the Six of Crows bandwagon, and I have no regrets whatsoever. I loved Six of Crows. I absolutely loved it. I loved it a lot more than Shadow and Bone. The characters were a lot better in my opinion, their relationships, their motivations. The plotline I think was also a lot more interesting. And it was also a slower kind of plotline. It wasn't something that things happened boom, 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 boom. You had to see the planning that went into the heist, the travel there, the conversations going on, everything that was going on about it. There was just the detail. The detail was amazing. I now understand why this book is as hyped as it is. It is absolutely amazing. I love it, and I am a massive fan of both Inej and Nina. Maybe Nina a little bit more because I appreciate a character who loves sweets as much as I do. And I love that all the characters, they're not quite all good, I guess. There's definitely some that are most definitely a lot more good, or at the very least, they firmly believe that they are good characters. They are in the right. My personal favorite is Matthias and how much he struggles with that. But I also love just how different all of these characters are. They're all very individual characters, and that individuality, they're still able to work very well together, and they have just this amazing chemistry. This book is filled with so many lines and one-liners and jokes and whatnot in it that I just found myself laughing constantly. And if not laughing, at least smiling really, really big, trying not to laugh in public. I don't really know what else there is to say. It was a 5 out of 5 star. I absolutely adored it. I cannot wait to get my hands on the sequel, which, again, because of the amount of people that want to borrow it off the library, it's going to take a little while. But I know when I do get to it, I'm probably going to devour it really quick because I want so much. I want to read more about these characters. So trust the hype on this book. It's actually really, really good. Unless you're not really into heist books, then this isn't for you. I guess I should probably add in, for those of you who have never heard of Six of Crows, do not know what this book is about. It is about 6 different individuals who all end up coming together to participate in a heist. Specifically, they are to break someone out of prison, and if they manage to do so, they will get a lot of money. So yeah, if that sounds like something you're interested in, highly recommend it, read it, you will very likely love it. And now we're on to the last book I read in February, and it was probably a really bad idea to read this book immediately after Six of Crows, because it is also a heist book. And I'm sorry to say, it just did not live up to what I had read in Six of Crows. So this may have affected my enjoyment of it. I can't be sure. Maybe if I had read it a bit afterwards, I might have enjoyed it more. However, I don't really think me reading it immediately after Six of Crows influenced my thoughts about this book that much. It just wasn't quite a book I enjoyed as much. I didn't think it was nearly as well developed for the heist. There was more I wanted out of it, and I think this book could have also been a bit longer. Alright, so without further ado, the book I read was Fire and Heist by Sarah Beth Durst. So this was included in the December Dragons Fairy box. So I decided to read it because I'd finished Six of Crows. I really, really liked it. I was interested in this because it also had a heist. It also had were-dragons, and I have been craving something that has dragons in it. So I thought I'd give it a try, and it didn't quite live up to what I was hoping for. Fire and Heist follows a teenage girl by the name of Sky Hawkins, and she is part of a family of were-dragons, and I guess a society. So in this book, it is kind of a alternate fantasy timeline of our history, where were-dragons exist in our society. We know they exist. They're extremely wealthy, kind of treated a bit like celebrities, but we don't hunt them because I guess they have bribed governments enough to not get hunted. I don't know, I'm still a little confused about that. Anyway, Skye and her family have fallen on hard times because her mother performed a heist that went terribly wrong and now she is gone. Where they do not know. Because of this, her family has lost more than half of its fortune, their status in the Weredragon community, and Skye has lost her boyfriend. In the hopes of gaining back what she has lost, she decides to perform the same heist that her mother has, and in doing so learns a terrible truth that could change the history for the entire Weredragon society. Could also just change their futures, I guess. Yeah, it changes their futures too. I gave it a 2 out of 5. It wasn't a terrible book, it just really wasn't something for me. I didn't enjoy the writing style. It wasn't really my kind of writing style. I do enjoy first person, but this one was a little bit too immature of a voice for me. I get it. I get the references that were used. I get why. I get what it was trying to do. Poke fun at itself, be funny and fun, but just it wasn't in a way that I personally enjoyed. For people who like books that do that, definitely give this book a try. You might find it absolutely hilarious and end up loving it. The other thing I just wasn't that attached to in this book was the heist itself. As I said with Six of Crows, I loved the amount of detail that was put into the book concerning the planning of the heist, the execution of it, the aftermath, all of it. This book really could have used more detail. A lot of it felt almost too fast-paced, which, considering the size of the book, isn't that surprising. And also, quite frankly, I did not care for the romance. I just did not. Skye can do better. I did enjoy the character of Gabrielle in this book though, which is why I almost gave it a 3 stars. I love Gabrielle. She is definitely who I would have been if I was a character in this book. A human overly excited about the prospects of all this adventure and fantasy and unicorns. No, seriously, I probably would have had the same level of excitement as Gabrielle did, so she was one of my favorite characters in this because she was ridiculously realistic to me. But in general, this just wasn't a book I enjoyed that much. I think it could have had a lot more detail. I wish it had had so much more detail. I will say I did enjoy the plot twist. I just wish there had been more to it. That's really all I wanted from this book. I wanted more. I wanted more descriptor, I wanted more planning, I wanted more detail, I wanted just more in this book. Honestly, it could have been an extra 100 pages and I think that actually would have helped. But as I said, even though I didn't really enjoy this book, if you think this is a book for you, give it a chance, you might just love it. Just wasn't quite for me. I am a little sad it wasn't, because it does have a great premise. I just wanted so much more. Alright, so there you have it. Those are the 4 books I read in the months of January and February. I might not have read a lot, but I did read books that I absolutely loved, and I have 2 series that I am ridiculously excited to continue on from. And I am 1 book closer to finishing the Crazy Rich Asian trilogy. I am so close. I'm gonna predict now that the 3rd book might outdo the 2nd and the 1st with descriptions of opulence. I'm going to call it now. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more videos by me, both bookish and travel related, please be sure to click that subscribe button down below. And I'll see you next time. Bye!